das geschlossen. Ja, das fand ich ein sehr.
Well, this has been a poignant keynote, I have to say, to kick off our event. So, our small industry has been viewed from outside. Thanks very much, Mr. Baumann, for this view from outside. And I hope that there is not a technical glitch now. So, are we all hooked up? Yes, we are. So thanks very much for this impressive keynote. Our world, of course, is undergoing major change, as we know. Change that is fast-paced and breathtaking. For more than 40 years, I've been working in this industry, and I've experienced a lot. And I'm in a fortunate position today because I'm able to talk about something that's unbelievable. The fascinating world of publishing houses in a fully digitized world. Burda has experienced this development as well. For more than 25 years, we've had digital change, digital transformation. And we are really, really healthy, even though we should be dead, but we aren't. Now, Steve Ballmer, the former CEO of Microsoft, back in 2008, talked very precisely about the end of print media. He said in 10 years' time, there won't be any newspapers and magazines anymore. Well, that was bad news for me back then. I used to work for the dailies, and then I started working for magazines. So I was told that by 2018 I wouldn't have a job anymore. But of course, the statement was not correct. Now, on the 1st of June 1994, I started working for Burda. That was quite a significant day because that's when Europe Online was also set up. Dr. Hubert Burda, our publisher, on the 1st of July 1994, came up with the first content-driven digital offer submitted at a European level. Well, that was significant because that was 1 year after the World Wide Web had been kicked off for the public at large, involving the Mosaic browser. Ever since then, our world, our industry has changed dramatically, and we haven't seen these changes for hundreds of years. There has been disruptive changes, and the last such disruptive change occurred 500 years ago when book printing came about. So digitization, of course, has changed many certainties and done away with a lot of certainties. The way you do research, the way you produce, the way you market the media. So all of these certainties have fallen by the wayside, and people don't really know what certainties are anymore. Now, why have these changes occurred? Well, Eric Schmidt, the then executive chairman of Google, well, he put it in a nutshell. He said the internet is the greatest disruptor of all time. So this disruptive change that's occurred has affected our industry. It's affected us quite early, as well as other industries as well, other fields of commerce, finances, wherever people interact on a global level. Digitization has changed our lives, and it's going to be a major drive in the future as well. There has been fast-paced technological change, dynamic change. Moore's Law, well, you all know what this is all about. Just look at this image. What you can see here is technology dating back to 1966. This huge contraption, IBM Data Processing Division, that's what it says here. Well, that was the first IBM hard drive, IBM 350 with 500 megabyte. That was the capacity, and it weighed more than 2,000 kilograms. Now we all have high-performance smartphones. Even the smallest iPhone has 16 gigabyte. So a lot more power than this huge device. Well, that's what Moore's Law is all about. Or just look at the scientific brain of Google. Well, the technological potential by the end of this millennium, well, that will develop 1,000 times more quickly than all over the 20th century. Technological change will be fast-paced because human life will be irretrievably changed. And of course, digitization, a digital revolution, well, that's not the right term because revolution means that something comes to an end. What we're living, of course, is not a revolution, but it's an evolution, an evolutionary process, which of course, has experienced exponential growth. It's a process that will never come to an end, and we will never experience this end either because there is no end. So what does this have to do with our little industry? Now, for more than 20 years, we have experienced technological change and the way it's affected our industry. It's an epoch-making, unbelievable type of progress because it's also resulted in a fundamental paradigm shift for our industry. It changes our role as media outlets in this world, and it changes it fundamentally. Why? Now, we publishing houses, we grew up in a world of scarcity in terms of information, entertainment, as well as news of any type. Now, what have we then seen? Where have we arrived? Well, we're now moving towards the infosphere, smart networked devices surrounding us, ubiquitous computing. A number of years ago, we thought that this was science fiction, but this is what our everyday world is all about. Our calendars check our traffic situation. They set our alarm clocks. They tell us that traffic is intense. And while we get up, we use technological digital devices. Individualized news is furnished along those channels. Our fridge talks with Amazon Fresh, telling it that there's no more milk. Our AC units, our heating units are connected to the weather app, and whenever we work out in the morning, our health stats are transmitted to our doctors. Facebook saves all of this, of course, and sells the data to the pharmaceutical industry, and the only one who doesn't know anything is Mark Zuckerberg, who says, "I'm so sorry." Well, our world, of course, is changing dramatically. By 2020, up to 40 billion devices will be connected to data servers and among each other. Data, of course, is growing tremendously. The quantity of news that we are inundated with is also increasing. So we used to grow up in a world of scarcity as the publishing industry, and now we are living in a world of total abundance. Now we, publishing houses, of course, well, we are one among a plethora of players. Publishing 3.0, consumers, readers, users, well, they are faced with a great variety of offers made for them, and there is a whole host of channels. What's a logical upshot of this atomized use of media, this fragmented use of media? And there has also been an explosive growth of offers. Well, that's what's also going on in the advertising markets. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the publishing houses dominated the advertising markets. Market shares hovered above 70% in Germany. Well, 20 years ago, the print media were also dominating the global advertising market with a share of almost 50%. Now, 2000, that of course was a watershed also for us, Burda. Focus, the magazine, was the largest advertising medium. 10 years later, television providers came to be number one. Digital channels, well, back in 2010, they had a share of 18%. Print, of course, dropped below 30% at the time. So what's disillusioning for us? Well, just look at the 2020 forecast. Just 9% of global advertising expenditures will affect print media, or just 4%, actually, 4% involving magazines. That's the share. That's a forecast share. So digital suppliers, digital providers in this market, they have come to the fore. Google, Facebook, and others. Last year, in 2017, they accounted for 25% of all advertising expenditure, not just digital ones. They dominated the global market. We publishing houses, of course, have needed to step down from Mount Olympus, and we've now ended up in the long tail of the advertising market. Our economic power, of course, has dwindled. You've got tech corporations in the US that are dominant. Publishing houses need to face these dramatic developments, and that's why they need to ask themselves or find a question, grow or go. Either we succeed in becoming less dependent on the volatility of the advertising market in order to explore new growth processes, or else will fall by the wayside and disappear. Either we'll manage to implement our vision of pluralism and freedom of speech. We need to adapt them to the 21st century, of course, or else we'll become extinct. We'll become the dinosaurs of a long democratic epoch prevailing on our planet. So, freedom of speech, of course, has always been very important. Journalism has been recognized as a fourth power. Now, our industry is dwindling, which has become a reality. Time Inc. came to an end early 2018, which, of course, constitutes a watershed for the entire industry. Just think about this time-honored publishing house that no longer exists. Time Inc. was an icon, was a role model for generations of journalists and media managers all over the world, was also a partner for more than 20 years. Well, this time is now gone. $1.2 billion, that was the overall debt that Time Inc. accumulated. So the name has disappeared, and the proceeds have been distributed. Now, the U.S., of course, is a referential market for us. Whatever happens in that market will happen 3 years later in our market. Time Inc., of course, as far as magazines go, could be compared to Burda. Our Time magazine is called Focus. Our People magazine is called Bunte. Our InStyle is the most successful magazine. Fit for Fun, that's the counterpart of Sports Illustrated. So I think we're in for the same fate. We might well be in for the same fate as the fate befitting or be affecting timing. But we have changed. Our path is transformation. In late 2013, we made an important decision. We kicked off an important program called Grow, meaning we have to grow. Thanks to this program, we have been able to come up with an ambitious vision. We said, well, in 10 years' time, we still would like to be an important pillar. We want to grow in terms of sales and results go. And that means that we have to also enhance profitability in the core business and change revenue streams. This is a courageous, ambitious, and counterintuitive strategy. Now, growth, how is it supposed to work in an era of shrinking markets? Now, 84% of all transformational programs fail. That's the result achieved by Barry Libert and Megan Beck, the founders of a machine learning company. Why have they said that? Many traditional companies are still trying very hard to face up to new challenges by using conventional technologies and methods as well as obsolete benchmarks. Rather than opting for transformation, people opt for digital optimization, and that was the case with Time Inc. as well. So Time Inc. failed because they were clinging to business models, the business models of the past. Digital advertising channels were blown out of proportion, and that then resulted in debt as well as the demise of the company. But there's a difference between transformation and digital optimization. Digital optimization improves the efficiency and effectiveness of an existing business model, which of course results in marginal improvements, but not in any long-term improvements. Transformation of business models, well, this is about a lot more. It's about using capital the right way. The investments need to be steered in other directions. There should be fundamental shifts. I'm not only talking about money, I'm also talking about using talent appropriately. I'm talking about generating new ideas. I'm talking about complex modes of thinking. So we didn't want to fall into this optimization trap when we devised Grow. It's a completely different program. It's made up of 3 large areas. Of course, we deal with structures, processes, our human resources, and their skills and competencies. Let me just give you a number to illustrate all of this. The number of staff, well, we've got 2,000 staff at national level in the publishing house. Half of them joined us later than 2014, so we've really overhauled our HR structure. We also, of course, focus on our technological basis. We've spent billions on this, such as Thunder, which is an open source content management system that we have developed. More than 200 publishing houses worldwide are using it. The third topic is quite decisive. So we deal with the culture, with our corporate culture, with the way our organization feels and acts. So companies, how do they actually work if they're not told how to work? Culture reflects basic interactions. How do people actually change culture, characterizes our thinking? So it's not just about structures, it's about achieving transformation, and it only works if you reach people's hearts. That's what makes or breaks transformation. So what have we achieved? How do we gauge success? Well, by looking at sales figures. At national level, we are growing. So Burda is now bigger than back in 2009. Sales go up. As far as the results go, we have been quite stable, and we are also stable on a long-term basis. We are resilient in terms of changes. But what's important, of course, is to change our revenue structures. What has changed? So we've come a long way. In 2017, we experienced a historic year. For the first time ever, proceeds or revenues from news streams became more important than revenues from the advertising market. Today, we generate 28% of our sales. Well, that's what these new revenue streams are responsible for. I'm talking about transactional-based or digital proceeds, rebranding, and so on and so forth. So in the past, we only had one or two of such streams, and now there are 100 or 120 new business models or revenue streams. So there's journalist creativity, but we also need corporate creativity. So we need to have courageous entrepreneurs, journalists, but also entrepreneurs. So transformation is feasible, as can be seen by the structure. It's a case of mission accomplished. So what we're dealing with here is evolution. Changes are quite dynamic. There has been exponential growth. So we need to fight for this with a great deal of energy, and we need to devise our future independently. Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Amazon, the most important and most successful entrepreneur worldwide, knows very well that day one is very important, as well as day two. And he uses martial words. Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. That's what Jeff Bezos, the most successful entrepreneur worldwide, has said. Now, Time Inc. is a case in point. It said, well, yes, we've managed transformation. We now have digital advertising structures. But, of course, you should never rest on your laurels. You've never arrived at a point where you can actually stop changing. So we're living in transformational times. But we still remain a publishing house. We still have our DNA, our own DNA. Our fundamental values, of course, are still high-quality journalism. And that's what is the secret of our success. We have traditional models, but we live in a digitized world. The more technology is spreading, the more dependent we become on technology, the more important emotions will become. John Nesbitt said this in High Tech, High Touch. High Touch is recognizing that art, story, play, religion, nature, and time are equal partners in the evolution of technology because they nourish the soul and fulfill its yearnings. That's what John Nesbitt said. And that's what we're doing. We're nourishing the soul and we fulfill yearnings. So we are very much affecting people's lives, and that's where new business is generated. People love our products. This is not just true for Burda, this is true for our own industry, for the whole industry. That's what makes it so varied, our industry, and that's what makes it so interesting. Future, that's not just about technology or codes or quantities of data. So we've seen digital change and disruption for 25 years. So what's come out quite clearly for me is that it's all about emotion, passion, empathy. As far as issues are concerned that are important to people, we need to be close to humans. Empathy, that's very important. That's what we need to cherish and nourish. And if we succeed in doing this, we will have a successful future. Thank you very much for listening to me.